everybody, and welcome back to our second YouTube video episode, which will also be streaming on our platforms. So it'll be wherever, not streaming, I don't know the words that people use nowadays, but wherever you get your podcast, it will be. And those links can be found in our Instagram bio, which is at hopeful_environmentalist. But let's get right into the episode today. Today's episode is with Charly Frisk, who is a climate storyteller and the director of climate action at Time for Better. She recently graduated with a Master's of Environmental Management from the Yale School of the Environment, and she holds a dual degree from the College of St. Benedict and St. John's University in Environmental Studies and Peace Studies. Currently, she works to bring hope and optimism into the climate movement in her role as the Director of Climate Action at Time for Better, which is a climate communications agency. She also works as a documentary filmmaker, working to creatively bridge natural and social sciences, which we do talk about in the episode a lot. I really loved her documentary, and I implore you all to watch it as well. It's on YouTube, so go check it out, which has found her in the middle of rural Danish farmlands all the way to polar bear zones in the Arctic Circle. So without further ado, let's get right into the episode. I am so excited for you all to hear it. Okay, so hi, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I'm super excited to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on this podcast.
Yeah, so I know you do work with Time for Better, and I saw that Time for Better was really active during New York Climate Week last week. I think it was last week or week after, hosting sign making events and like the Earth Disco and other events. And I just wanted to know, like, why is creating these spaces for collaboration and community so important?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that spaces for community and collaboration are really at the heart of the climate movement. We hear a lot about climate anxiety and eco anxiety and how paralyzing these feelings can be, and how isolating that people can feel navigating this really scary moment in history. But this is a lifelong journey that people have to be involved with, and continue the good work. So making sure that people feel like they're welcome, that they have a space, that they have a home is really important and definitely central to the role that we play as an organization. And yeah, Time for Better is a creative climate communications agency. We focus on digital media activations and also event activations. And during Climate Week, we really tried to show up on a multitude of different levels at the grassroots level and then also at higher levels as well. But yeah, we had a beautiful sign making party. We had a bunch of really amazing climate activists come and start the morning before the March to End Fossil Fuels with a nice breakfast and free sign making materials and listening to music and just offering a space of joy. And yeah, later in the week, we were able to host the Earth Disco, and this was just a joyous gathering of over 500 different people from all different sectors of the climate movement, from climate scientists to business CEOs to indigenous activists to youth activists, and they were all dancing and celebrating the Earth. We had indigenous DJ, we had the Earth herself, Hill the Earth. So yeah, and I feel like everybody just came away with feeling that, yeah, we're on this together and that we need to be here for each other and celebrate the moments of joy that do exist in this movement.
Yeah, there's so many things there that you just said that like resonate, and I was so jealous of the events and seeing all the community and everything. I was like, because I lived in New York all my life and I just moved to North Dakota, which is so random, but I was like, why did I have to miss all of this? Like, really? Like, literally, I just moved here like a month ago, so it was like I just missed it.
Oh
Um,
no.
so next year I will
Yeah.
definitely be there because I was so jealous of seeing it all, but it was also like not just jealous of like wow, like mad jealous, like jealous, like happy jealous, like seeing those spaces being created for people, and just seeing all the joy in that space like really made me happy, and that's why I was jealous. Just
Yeah.
seeing that was like beautiful, and I think it's just important to make people feel welcome, and the fact that you guys do both digital and in person, makes it way more inclusive. And I think people
Yeah.
often forget about the digital part and how digital activism is still a thing and is still very crucial to get people involved, especially either people who might not have been involved before, live in different areas of the world, or have a disability. It's so crucial and
Yeah,
important. So
absolutely.
yeah. And kind of switching gears a little bit to talk about COP27. Um, so I saw that Time for Better hosted the Hope House, and I would love to hear a little bit about that. And, the events that you hosted were focused on building hopeful futures, centering Indigenous knowledge and wisdom, and sharing knowledge across cultures. And I think sometimes people often forget about the importance of just talking with others and sharing this love, hope, joy, as tools for creating a better future. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit about these events and how the discussions and joy held in these spaces help create room for a better future.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think often when people think about COP27 or think about climate conferences, the images that come to mind are sterile conference spaces, people literally not having food or a meal the entire day. Everybody's walking around in suits and uncomfortable, rushing to the next event, sitting down, listening, rushing to the event after. So it's not really a space for cross collaboration, and it's a really rushed space. It's a space that doesn't often take care of people. It's a space that often doesn't center the voices of people that are on the front lines of the climate crisis. Um, and also, there are instances where you have people that are really frustrated with the climate crisis and reaching out and responding and saying, "Hey, listen to us. We have this problem." And you have people that are not listening, that are focusing on other things. So, Sierra Quiddiquit, who's the founder of Time for Better, went to COP26 in Glasgow. She kind of noticed this pattern that there isn't a lot of communication happening in these spaces. So what she did is she founded this Hope House project by Time for Better. And it's a space outside of the blue zone. Blue zone is where all the negotiations happen. It's where all of those like high level politicians are. And outside of the green zone, which is open to the public. And she created a side event series. And we held the Hope House at this villa that was along the coastline of the Red Sea. There was like a coral reef right next by that you could walk down to. And we hosted all different types of creative events. So one of the events would involve taking members of the Climate Pledge out to a scuba dive experience where they could see the wonderful fish that exist in the Red Sea so that they could remind themselves what they're working towards. And we partnered with a local environmental nonprofit to make sure that it was sustainable and safe. Another event that we had was partnered with Good Meat. And Good Meat is a lab grown meat company. And we hosted a white glove service dinner with lab grown chicken meat. We had a barbecue stand, and yeah, people had chicken skin that was, yeah, not really from a chicken. And then 6 months later, Good Meat got USDA and FDA approval from the US government. And so, really cool change making things can come from these moments. But what I thought was really impactful were spaces where you saw that conversations weren't typically centered, or these are moments that um, voices aren't typically centered at COP, where we had a Building Bridges event, people from all across the political spectrum, from the right and left, sitting down and having a meal together and then taking a selfie and talking about how they're friends and they're going to work together after this, and just building network connections that don't have to exist in this like really rushed framework, but exist on a framework that they were being cared for. We provided, yeah, just a nourishing moment for them. And then my favorite event was we had Indigenous women leadership panel, and it was in front of a like a body of water, a pool, and we had a water blessing to start off the event, and it was just a whole room of women, and at the stage was just all these powerhouse Indigenous women talking about care for Mother Earth. You could see all of the women in the audience, and they're all sitting down on poofs or carpet and had a plate of food in front of them, and they were just, yeah, learning, and it's candlelit and beautiful. So yeah, there's just different creative events that we did during COP27 that I feel like really left a positive impact on people, and brought us to our current activation, which we're doing in COP28, another Hope House.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have a question about COP28. But I think everything you talked about right now is like seeing what we're protecting is so important. That's something that I like love and like live by, because even like living in an apartment, I'm like, okay, I need nature. Like I want to just go outside, but I live in a city. So finding time to just go out and finding those green spaces is so important. And to remember like this is, and it's also a privilege to live near green spaces, but being out there and remembering why we're doing this and what we're protecting. Like, even if you just see like a tree and you're like, okay,
Right,
that's what I'm protecting.
right. And it's like sometimes COP has like greenery inside the space, but yeah, I attended COP25 in Madrid, Spain, and they had lemon trees to kind of like give the ambiance of nature. But by the end of the 2 weeks, nobody was taking care of the trees and they just died. It was so depressing. So yeah, I feel like our space, like it was just covered in flowers and nature, and you could see the ocean while you're listening to the panelists, and just yeah, having that reminder that we are a part of this world makes you care about it more, makes your actions that much more impactful, because you understand that like we're all on this, yeah, beautiful planet together, and we all need to do our best to make life possible for future generations to come.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important. And I feel like for the lemon tree thing, I think that's like a metaphor of like, okay, this is what the
It
world
was.
leaders, yeah, like world leaders didn't do anything at COP25. So that's like a
It
metaphor.
was a very sad metaphor. I was like, wow, this is really real right now. Yeah.
But then you created an event that changed that. So that's really great that your organization is able to do that, and bring that to people and make it accessible to people, and centering voices that aren't typically heard in the cop space, and making sure that people do hear them and are centering, the voices that everyone matters, but the voices that aren't getting heard also matter a lot. They're the ones who are holding this wisdom and the knowledge that we need to progress out of the current climate catastrophe that we're in. So
Yes.
yeah, great to hear about those events. And so now talking about COP28, as that quickly approaches, what is Time for Better gearing up for in this year's Hope House?
Yes. So pretty much right after Climate Week ended, COP28 production ramped up very quickly for us. But we've been planning this activation since May of this year. Um, but basically, we're creating another Hope House, and this event series is going to be held in Al Serkal, which is Dubai's most beloved arts and cultural district. And we're situated right next to a couple other creative agencies and hubs of knowledge and community and collaboration, including Goals House. And we are setting out to just making a space for change makers to come and meet and have wellness. We're going to have a wellness room for people to have a moment to take care of themselves, or have, yeah, just nice sound baths, and just making sure that people are taking care of themselves upstairs. And then downstairs of our Hope House will be kind of just a home for people to put together panels and discussions and workshops, which will add to the conversation around COP in a really creative way. And we're taking inspiration from the topics that will be held at COP28 and putting together unique programming to go along with that, including oceans and stock take and gender and climate. And yeah, assembling all of our events right now. But yeah, the whole mission is just to offer a space of creativity and joy in the climate movement.
Yeah, I was just listening to an episode of Outrage and Optimism, which is another podcast that I love to listen to. I think people forget that podcasters listen and support other podcasts,
Yes, yes,
but I love
love
that
that podcast.
podcast. Yeah, it's amazing. And they were talking about, like remembering to like take care of yourself and things like that. And I just think it's so important, like talking about wellness and remembering that when you're at these spaces, that it is so important to take care of yourself. I also heard from people who attended COP 27 last year, like they were just saying, like, oh, I was so drained and like I just felt like I needed like a month to just like sleep and relax. And I think like creating that space is so important. Just and creating that creativity is also important. And they also talked about that on Outrage and Optimism, how creativity is crucial and needed to get us out of these spaces. So yeah, the bad spaces that we're in, not good. We want good spaces. We don't want the bad
Absolutely.
spaces. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, because this work is really hard, and what we're asking of governments, what we're asking of negotiators, what we're asking at people at all sectors is it's a big ask. It's a big ask to change the course of how we're headed right now, and it's going to take a lot of teamwork. And at Time for Better, this is something that the CEO and founder Sierra says all the time, but we can only do be as well as we are well and do as well as we are well. So yeah, if we are not taking care of ourselves actively, we can't expect that we can show up for the earth fully or our community fully. So wellness is definitely a core pillar of who we are and what we try to do.
I love that. That's amazing. And thank you for adding that little touch in there. That was, I love that. So, what is something that you are hoping comes out of COP 28?
Yeah, big question because this is the first global stocktake COP. So this is the first time that nations are going to sit down and decide of how we're coming through and progressing on the Paris Agreement. So definitely a little nervous on that front, but something that I really try to remember, and so glad that you brought up Outrage and Optimist podcast because Christiana Figueres is a really major figure, and she just really sees a lot of climate optimism, and we look up to her so much as well. And something that I think she really exemplifies is that while there is reason to be concerned about the climate crisis, there is also valid scientific reasons to have hope. And I think that when you have a summer like we did have, where it was the hottest summer on record since 1880, that becomes really hard. But then you look at how we're progressing on renewables, or you look at the youth climate movement, and you see how all of those solutions are really radiating out, and people are really, yeah, making a difference. So I think that, yeah, I'm not really sure what's going to come out of COP yet. I think that that will become more and more clear as the weeks lead up. But what I do know is that when we take care of our community, which I hope that we will at this upcoming event series, as this, yeah, topic of wellness becomes more and more important, I think that we'll be able to pull together something really beautiful, and I have hope on that.
Yeah, and I love that quote that you brought up from Christiana. I think it's just like, as someone who is hopeful as well, I also experience that like doomism and like I think we all
Yeah.
do. We all experience it in this space, even if we're the most hopeful people. Um, there is that sense of doom a little bit, but we also have so much community. And when I look at my community and like the community around us, I see that I have hope. All I have is hope. And I'm like, we really do have this, and creating like again the spaces that you are and Time for Better is creating are so crucial to remember that we all are in this together in a good way. Like we are organizing together and creating this world. We're not waiting for people to do it for us. We're doing it. And I think that's so
Yeah.
important. Like the youth movement and just the indigenous movement and all these other movements, we really are coming together. And I love to see that. Like we saw that at the march was 75,000 people there. People
Yes.
from everywhere are coming in and coming together. And that's for one thing, one that, what was it, like the
Right.
first time they agreed on ever like one thing just to end fossil fuels, and
Yeah.
it's like
A
crazy.
single message. I like just got chills. Yeah, it's incredible. The people power is just absolutely phenomenal in this movement. Yeah, truly incredible. And one thing that I would also like to add that I'm really excited about COP28 and just Time for Better as well, that I didn't mention with the Earth Disco that we had is that we just launched our philanthropic initiative with Time for Better, and we're directly funding youth and Indigenous and underrepresented climate activists be able to come to spaces like COP28. And we have just funded two youth activists to go, Priscilla and Kevin. And yeah, we just want to make it possible to access these spaces that are really hard to access. Like COP is not an inexpensive feat to go travel to and also to meaningfully participate at. But yeah, as you have just said, like people have power, and if you meaningfully allow people to participate and be a part of this process of creating solutions, especially youth and Indigenous and underrepresented climate activists, you can create real change.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. And that's, I saw that on your Instagram and I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Like it's so true. Like it's so inaccessible to get to some of these spaces like COP. Um, it's just, I remember last year's one, I was like looking at flights and it was like like over $1,000. And I was like, nope.
Yeah, yeah. And I experienced this as well, like my college, the College of St. Benedict in Minnesota. So I'm right next door to North Dakota. But yeah, my college was able to support me to attend and then also support me to like help give workshops and media training after. So that's something that we're really hoping to do with the fund as well, because it's amazing to go, it's amazing to participate, but then because so many people cannot go, then it should be that people should have access to understand what's happening on the ground. So we're hoping to support that aspect as well.
Yeah, and that's also so important because as someone, I only attended COP15, which was the one for biological diversity in Canada, because it was like 6 hours away and there was a bus that takes you right up, which was pretty amazing. So can take public transport. um,
Yes.
but I was just like thinking about like how I didn't really know about COPs and what they were, even as someone who has, I just got my master's and I did not know what cops were until last year. And it's kind of been a huge learning curve for me, like trying to figure out even being in this space. And I'm like embarrassed to say I didn't know it. But at the same time, we all have different parts of the climate movement, and being able to
Yeah.
still understand what it is and making that information accessible, to just have a basic level. We don't all need to be there, and we don't all need to, know every little nitty gritty detail. We just need to know, basics. Okay, this happened. What we need to do next is the important thing. Like, what are the next steps? So
Yes.
thank you for bringing that up. And I would also like to just switch gears a little bit, if that's okay with you, to talk about, your work in storytelling. And I think that's always something I love to talk about. And talking about it before, just being able to see nature and be a part of nature. And that's what storytelling and documentaries all do. So, how do you use storytelling and climate change communication in your own work? And can you tell us a little bit about the kind of work that you've done within that space, including your documentaries, which I commend you for. That's so amazing. And congrats for those.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for this question. So I grew up in Colorado, and I had the Rocky Mountains as a backdrop to my entire life. And ever since I was a kindergartner, I've been communicating about the environment. I organized a bat assembly for my kindergarten class so that they could have empathy towards these little flittering things. And yeah, got involved in creating a green club for my middle school and was really involved in sustainability all throughout high school and researching biodiversity. But in my AP environmental course in high school, my teacher told me climate change was not real And even if it was real, it's definitely not caused by humans. So I grew up in an area that was pretty heavily invested in fracking. And I was surrounded by people that had a lot of doubts about climate change. So when I went to college and had my Intro to Environmental 150 course, because I was environmental studies and peace studies, um, I was absolutely shocked to learn about the climate crisis, and I had a lot of internal turmoil about understanding the data, especially as it conflicted with a lot of the things that I learned when I was younger. And the data, of course, was important, and it was really impactful to understand, yeah, climate data on the cooling curve, learn about ice core dating. But what really didn't solidify about the climate movement or about climate change, it wasn't really clear to me until I heard about the stories on the front lines of the climate movement, people that were watching their houses disappear, people that were experiencing unprecedented natural disasters, people that were in communities that were really extractive based and having long term health impacts, people that were having trouble breathing because of air pollution. And this is what really like sparked a fire with me with climate storytelling, because I think that this is such an impactful way to reach people. Because while I think the Yale program on climate change communication has over 50% of people understand that climate change is happening and that it's human caused, there's still that other 50% that don't understand. And so storytelling can really be a really great platform for people to learn about the climate movement. And in college, at the College of St. Benedict's and St. John's University, I got involved with a student-run documentary group, and we had a series of 4 different kind of documentary projects throughout the 4 years of me attending school there. And I learned how to create documentaries from an ethical lens and really working with communities to help support in telling stories from their perspective and making sure that things are done as ethically as possible. And yeah, I think film is really great, impactful way to reach people. They say that a picture is worth 1,000 words, and I don't even know what a moving picture would be. Millions? I don't know. And so I went into graduate school right after graduating college, and I attended the Yale School of Environment master's program, and I studied environmental management with the emphasis on climate science and solutions. And my goal while I was there was to create a documentary. And while I could have made a documentary about anything, and I had a lot of ideas, I was inspired by a recent trip to Denmark to retain my Danish dual citizenship, where I met this beautiful seed saver who had been saving seeds for, yeah, her whole life, and just, yeah, creating this amazing amount of seed diversity and understanding the relationship to, um, yeah, seed diversity to resilience in crops response to climate change. I became really passionate of how to make this topic as interesting and eye-catching as possible. So I created a documentary that reflected not only my passions about climate change, but my cultural heritage as well. And yeah, have been traveling around and showing my documentary to different groups, including garden clubs or heritage clubs. And these are people that may not always think about the relationship of their work to climate change, but this documentary has been a great platform to have those initial conversations in a non-threatening way.
Yeah, I would love to hear a little bit about like global seed diversity. I've never heard, I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never like learned about it. It's just been like something I like heard about. So I don't know if you're comfortable, but if you want to like just share a little bit about it, I'd love to hear it. And I'm sure people would love to hear it as well.
Yes. So we have lost about 75% of our seed diversity since the 1900s. And this is largely due to big ag coming in with huge chemical fertilizers and these, yeah, monoculture systems that we see today. Um, And yeah, just getting rid of a lot of seed diversity. And one of the ways that they did this was criminalizing seed exchanges. So if I wanted to give Taylor, our lovely host, a seed, just because I had a pea and it was so good. It was like the most fresh green, beautiful little pea pod that you ever did see. And I was like, oh, you need to try this in your garden meals. Then that would literally be illegal in Denmark from 1987 up until 2014. That's crazy that that is criminalized. That and that's not even the only country that that's criminalized in. And many countries still have like pretty strict laws on seed exchanges. And of course, it's important to protect our native species and our indigenous species, and you have to be careful with invasive species as well. And I'm not going to pretend that that's not a problem. But when you look around places like Minnesota or North Dakota or Colorado in these big agricultural areas where you see one crop for miles, and you think about problems like how we have almost lost bananas in this world. Like we almost lost the banana in 1950 because there was a huge pest that just wiped out bananas. So we had to create a whole new banana. If you think of problems like that and you think of corn, what's going to happen when the next super pest species or the next super parasite or bacteria comes up and gets resurfaced by climate change? And our crop systems are already suffering because of climate change, like droughts and disasters. That's not a very resilient system. And there's things that can be done to change that, which is introducing seed diversity and introducing multi-species fields where you can be more resilient and mimics more of a biodiverse area. So there's things that we can do, and that starts with something as simple as a seed.
I love all of that, and I can definitely attest that North Dakota is a lot of one one crop. I can attest to that. It's you go outside of any
Yeah.
city and it's just like I drove across the state 2 weeks ago and with my roommate and it was just like corn. I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh
And
my
that's
God."
terrifying. That's terrifying.
Yeah. And I did not know about the banana like crisis issue. I will definitely have to research that. That is insanity. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it just would be a shame to lose, like, food is such an important part of our culture, a part of our cultures. And if we lose species like that, that can have a huge impact on how we function in this world. So, yeah, I feel like people should definitely give a second look at seeds and everything. And it's really actually kind of simple to get started with supporting seed diversity. You can go to your local library, and often they will have a seed library set aside, and you can go see what heirloom species, non-GMO species are in your area.
Oh, okay. I'm definitely gonna have to do that. I did not know any of
Yeah.
this. This is thank you so much for this. I'm so glad I asked that question, that follow-up, because that's so where can people watch and support your documentary? Is it available online?
Yes, it's on YouTube, and yeah, my channel is just Charly Frisk, so they'll be able to look it up.
Perfect. Well, I'll also, for anyone listening, I'll link it in the description so you can easily just click it and find it. Because I think I'm gonna watch it after this. I'm so excited to watch it.
Me too.
That's so amazing. But also, going back to what you were talking about, your story of why you got into this and how you got into this, that is such a jump scare that your AP class said climate change isn't real and that humans aren't causing it. But like, I also feel that in some respects. Like, I didn't have that experience. I also never was in AP. So that was really good for you. APs were too much for me. But all I learned about in I think I forget what it was, earth science, I think it was called. We just like learned that like recycling is important. The earth is heating up, the global warming, the earth is heating up, but that's not really going to impact us. And recycle and we'll be fine.
Right.
That seems a little
Hmm.
weird for me, but I guess I'll have to learn more about that outside of school. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but again, like just making sure that youth have access to this type of education, and not just youth, like everybody, but especially youth when they're going through schools, learn like, some people don't want to learn more. So when they see, okay, climate change isn't real by their AP professor, they believe that. And not that people, I
Yeah.
didn't mean that people don't want to learn. It's just that people hear that and they say, okay, that's it. My teachers are right. Like they are the people who have to be right, right? Like, and they
Yeah.
hear that and they keep that ideal for either their whole lives or until somebody else changes it with, no, they were wrong. Like they were really wrong. Climate
Right.
change is really
They're
real.
really wrong. They were really steering you wrong. Yeah, I feel like on the very least is that climate change is happening and that it's human caused. But yeah, something that we're seeing a lot in the climate movement is when you tell people that climate change is happening and that it's human caused, and you and add a period, and you don't really show people the solutions or the hope that's in this movement, that makes people really anxious, or it just turns people off. And then you have somebody that knows about what's happening, but that is apathetic. And that is yeah, that's a huge population that is not activated in the climate movement. They don't know what to do because it's a really scary problem. And I know that one of the activists that's out of UC Berkeley, her name's Sage, she has rewritten her college, yeah, platform of speaking on environmental studies and climate studies to have this lens of hope and optimism and solutions. So I think that there is work that's being done, and I think that there's more work that should be done. And this is something that Time for Better is really passionate about, is to educate people on what's happening, but then to have some kind of yeah, hope and optimism aspect of it, that people can get activated and take action in their local and global communities.
Yeah, I've also like seen that when people, we can teach them about the problem or just tell them about the problem, like say, hey, this is what's going on. And then when we don't either provide this sense of hope, like, hey, we can actually fix this, here's how. We don't need a
Right.
roadmap of exactly, because there is no roadmap of exactly how we're going to fix this, but just here's some people you can support. You can support these people who are trying to make change and making change on this different level, because there's so many ways to make change. And I think that's also something that like gets me anxious. It's just like, okay,
Yes.
finding what I need to do and I want to do. And I just did a YouTube podcast episode about that, like just figuring out like what you want to do. And I think it's Dr. Ayana Elizabeth Johnson who has her Venn diagram. I think that's so important as
Yes.
well, like such a great resource. So anyone listening, I will also link her Instagram handle that you can go follow and look at the Venn diagram and try to figure it out yourself too, because that's so important, like figuring out what you want to do. And all of these different attending events online or in person with Time for Better, and going to all other types of events. You can see what you like and enjoy and try to figure out where you fit in the climate space, because there's room for everybody. There really is.
Yes.
So
Absolutely. And we need everybody.
yes, that's also, yes,
Yeah.
there's room for everybody and we need everybody. That is definitely yes. So I was also just one last question to wrap it up is, what makes you hopeful in the climate movement? I love to hear, just a raw thought of what you think of that and what brings you hope.
That's a very good question. Um, I think what brings me the most amount of hope in this movement is stories of people that are doing the work that is aligned with their passions and talents and hopes and aspirations for what a better future can look like, because that's really inspiring. So I would encourage anybody that, yeah, needs extra hope about the movements to, of course, get plugged in and join your local initiatives to make sure that the fossil fuels are getting phased out. But then when you're feeling low and you want hope and inspiration in your life, I think that turning to stories of where people are making change in their communities can be a huge source of inspiration and solace for your heart and being and everything. So I would recommend stories, and I'm of course particular to documentaries, but there's so much other forms of stories out there like climate fiction or magazines like The Orion or Atmos or anything like this. Like there's so many stories out there because the climate touches every part of our lives. So yeah, lots of things out there to consume and get inspired by.
Yeah, and you also forgot Time for Better. You can include
And
that
time
too.
for better. Of course. Come to us, get some inspiration and hope.
But yes, 100%. So I will also, for anyone listening, tag and put all the handles down below in the description. So feel free to go check them out, follow along on all their events and support, share however you can. But yeah, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for joining the podcast. It really has been a very insightful and amazing and intellectual conversation. So thank you
Thank you so much for having me, Taylor.
so much for listening and watching this video. Again, please subscribe. We love to have you here, and I love that we can be a free resource for people to learn more about climate action and how you can get involved. So definitely subscribe. Definitely follow the podcast on social media, which is our Instagram, that's really and TikTok. We also have a TikTok. Go to TikTok. I think it's the same handle. I probably should know that, but yeah, let's do it together. But also you can go on our link in our bio on Instagram, and you can follow our Geneva or go into our Geneva. I don't know the words that I'm supposed to be using. Too many new words. But our Geneva and our Discord, we're having great conversations in there about making climate friends, sharing resources, so many amazing things. So yeah, that is the TikTok. So go to that. All of that is in the link in our Instagram bio, which is @hopeful_environmentalist. And we will see you back next week for another YouTube episode. Thanks and have a great rest of your week. And always remember to stay hopeful and create positive change.